KSL Broadcast House. This is Sunday Edition with Doug Wright.
And good morning and welcome to Sunday Edition. Earlier today, actually, I had the opportunity to talk with Representative Chris Stewart about his decision to step away from his congressional seat in the 2nd District. A little later on in the show, we'll be having our official handoff to Boyd Matheson, a good friend of mine who is taking over as the host for Sunday Edition. But first, I'm joined now by the Director of Outreach for Lifting Hands International, Jessica Kendrick. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us here on Sunday Edition.
Thanks, Doug. Glad to be here.
For those who might not be completely up to speed with Lifting Hands, tell us about your organization.
Yeah, so we're a Utah-based nonprofit, and we help provide aid to refugees at home and abroad. And so our vision is really to help people figure out how they can help.
It's interesting you say at home or abroad. I was telling you the story. I was actually having a lunch with Governor Huntsman quite a while ago at the taco stand on State Street, which he was famous for, where he got a phone call from the governor of Louisiana and was very concerned about the refugees after Katrina and what could we as Utahns do to help. And a good number of them actually came to our state. The biggest number, and you were telling me, is 65,000 refugees that are in the state of Utah, roughly. Is that correct?
Right now, yep.
How many of them are international versus more from the United States or even North America itself?
Yeah, so technically to be called a refugee, you have to leave your country. And so a refugee is someone who has fled their country either because of war or persecution or some terrible natural disaster. I really try and encourage people to close their eyes and picture what would it take for you to flee and leave your home and everything you've ever known behind, and it's got to be something pretty drastic to do that.
So when we use the term refugee, at least when our conversation with you, that it would be international.
Right, yeah. If someone's displaced within their own country, then they're called a displaced person.
Over the years, I would imagine that the numbers of people and the individuals from different regions will change and alter. Where are the refugees coming to Utah coming from? Yeah,
it's actually from over 20 countries, so it's all over the world. But you can kind of map it, right, based on the news stories that we read. So last year we saw a lot of refugees arriving from Afghanistan. Now there's a lot of people from Ukraine. I'm sure with the conflicts in Africa down the line, we'll see more people from Sudan and South Sudan. But it really is all over the world.
We hear about the refugee camps and even the difficulty of getting them to a safe haven, whether it be Utah, the United States, the United Kingdom, wherever. Has that changed at all? Is it easier now? Has some of the red tape been cut?
It's still a very difficult, long journey that any refugee faces. And every refugee story is different. But like you said, there's 3 main steps that every refugee has to go through. So the first is that survival mode, just trying to get to safety. Right. They need food and shelter and clean water. Next is really a limbo time, waiting and living in a refugee camp while they, for their visa or to hear which country they're going to be assigned to. And that can extend for years and years. We work with some Syrian refugees in Jordan who have been living there for over 8, 9, 10 years now. And then the last step is resettlement. So when they finally are resettled in a new country, they have to learn how to integrate and start their new lives in their new home.
Once they do get here, let's talk exclusively about Utah here. What are some of the bigger challenges and what do they first find and face?
Yeah, so they basically step off a plane with a little suitcase, and that's it. So one of the programs that Lifting Hands does is we have a welcome program where we have teams of volunteers every week as new refugee families arrive, set up their apartments for them. And so we provide the bedding and the cleaning supplies and furniture and 2 weeks worth of groceries so that when they first land and arrive, they can focus on things like finding a job and enrolling in school instead of where am I going to sleep and what am I going to eat.
Right.
And then from there, the Utah community is so welcoming and supportive of these refugee families. There's lots of different mentorship opportunities with different organizations in the state that you can volunteer with to help people, learn how to sign up for internet or make sure that they're connected with a bank and things like that. So you can really help them restart their lives.
Showing up with just basically a little suitcase and not a whole lot more, but many people bring gifts and skills and talents with them. I mean, we even look back to World War II. You think of all the nuclear physicists and rocket scientists, literally, that we got who were refugees at the time. How prepared are these folks when it comes to some of the survival skills of just a good living?
Oh, yeah. They come from all variety of backgrounds and talents. And we actually have a program where in Greece, outside of a refugee camp where 1,000 refugees are living right now. And part of that center that we have there is teaching them English and German so that that time in limbo at the refugee camp can be spent preparing for where they're going to end up eventually. And things, you know, some are professionals, dentists and doctors and things. Right. And we partner with some organizations that really try to get them connected back in their fields in their new country. Others are, you know, need to learn some skills, and so we teach them computer classes and things like that while they're in limbo. So it's a wide variety.
We have such a great giving state. Utah's kind of famous for volunteerism and stepping up, but a lot of times people just don't know how to do that, where to go, what to give. What should we do?
Yeah. Well, I'd encourage you to visit lhi.org. That's our website. We have lots of volunteer opportunities listed there. And really, it can be for any amount of time or commitment that you have. So, click of a button, making a donation is a simple, easy way that you can do and know that you're going to be sending aid quickly and efficiently into the hands of refugees. We also operate a humanitarian aid warehouse in American Fork is our hub. And so there's opportunities there to volunteer, and you can bring your youth group or your business and come down there. But we also can set up volunteer opportunities, you know, at your family reunion that you're doing this summer or things like that, where you can assemble a hygiene kit or a school kit. And then we have 60 drop-off locations across the state. So you don't have to go all the way to American Fork to deliver what you've put together. We can definitely get you connected right in your community.
I so appreciate you joining us and telling us more about Lifting Hands.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, and best of luck.
Thank you.
And we're going to be right back for the conversation I mentioned a little earlier with Representative Chris Stewart. Stay with us. Earlier, I had the opportunity to sit down via Zoom with Representative Chris Stewart. He's back in our nation's capital right now. Chris, I really appreciate you joining us on Sunday Edition. It's ironic, as you're wrapping up your career in the United States Congress, I'm wrapping up my career here at KSL. And because of our long time friendship, under quite a few different discussions that we've had, from being an author to running for Congress, being a congressman, and so on, it's ironic that this will be my last television show on Sunday Edition. And I'm honored that you'd be our guest as you are exiting the United States Congress. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, what an honor, Doug. And I really mean that. And you know, for, as we were discussing, 40 plus years of your service and your example and your voice that so many people have learned to trust. And for so many reasons, we're certainly going to miss you. What a great honorable coincidence that I get to be on one of your last shows. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, that's very kind. And, you know, I think our friendship is the example of people that, although we are of the same party, but, you know, we have differed on some issues, but I still consider you a very dear friend, and politics doesn't have to rip friendships apart, families apart, and certainly our country apart. And so I'm very, very grateful.
Well, another thing too, Doug, is I think we maybe learned from each other. I know I learned some things from you. You and I would call you from time to time, or you would reach out and we'd kind of talk through the things that we really didn't see eye to eye on. But I always, you know, after those conversations, I always thought, well, you know, he has a point. There's something there to consider. And I think, you know, that's probably the way that I would hope many of our conversations go. But the truth is that some of them don't. And that's why there's so much emotion and so much divisiveness that we see in our culture. It just exhausts people.
Yeah, it is amazing what we can learn when we listen to each other. Chris, I've got to ask the question. You know, I know how much you have loved public service in so many different ways. Back to your military career, I mean, it just goes on and on. I've sat with you in your office in Washington, D.C., and I know you love this country and you love being congressman. Tell us a little bit about the decision to end your congressional career and even end it a little early.
Yeah, well, it was not what we expected, and it's not at all what we wanted. I thought that we would be serving for a few more terms. But my wife had some health concerns, as has been reported. She had a stroke about a year ago, and she's young, she's healthy. It was a huge surprise to both of us. And she's generally okay. She's certainly not immobilized or paralyzed like some really unfortunate stroke victims are. But there are some things from it that have made it just very, very difficult for me to be gone all the time. As an example, once this spring, I was gone 7 out of 8 weeks, and that's just a long time to be away from home. And I realized it's just not fair to her any longer. And it was a difficult decision, Doug, a very difficult decision. I feel like I'm needed here in Congress. I feel like we're doing important work, and I certainly didn't want to leave in the middle of a term. Honestly, I got to tell you too, I was worried about how this would be received. But I got to say, it's been an overwhelming, uplifting experience for me. People from all over the country have reached out, and they've been so supportive. And the thing I hear again and again is, hey, you're a great member of Congress. We're going to miss you, all the things you would expect. But the thing I didn't expect is for so many people to say, hey, I'm proud of you. When you say that we actually put family first, you're proving that that's true. And I'm grateful for the support people have been, how supportive they've been, and how kind they've been. So I don't want to leave Congress, but it's the right thing for our family.
Let's talk about the process. We learned a lot when Jason Chaffetz created an open seat here in the state, and certain things occurred. We had a special session of the legislature that dealt with some of the fine tuning of this. We go into, and we're always really open about this on Sunday Edition. As we record this weekend's convention has yet to occur. It'll be in the rearview mirror by the time people watch this conversation on a Sunday morning. But as you've observed the process, how do you feel about the way things have unwrapped on this in the state of Utah, basically plowing the way for a new congressman to take a seat?
Well, I think generally we've been supportive and very positive about it, recognizing that the timeline is compressed and recognizing that there's a very short process to select the new representative. But one thing I'm really confident in, and that is that there's a number of people who could be a great member of Congress. I've been supportive of a staffer of mine, Celeste McCoy, but there's a number of people who again would represent the district very well and would be a leader here in Congress. And so, although the process was kind of compressed and it was a little uncertain at first, as the state legislature had to clarify through a special session, I'm confident the outcome's going to be good.
As far as it has the interesting thing for me, and I hadn't really done the math on the timetable and so on. You mentioned compression, but it does change the off-year general election to not the typical either second Tuesday of November or depending on where the Monday falls, even a little earlier than that. That's going to be an interesting change. I don't think in my lifetime I've ever voted that late in November.
Yeah, always think of that first Tuesday in November, right? Well, the good news is that there's plenty of time to prepare for that change, and I think almost everyone will be aware of it. I don't think we're going to have too many people show up at the polls on Tuesday, the first Tuesday in November, and wonder why they're not open. And we certainly hope that doesn't happen. But again, we've got time to educate and to inform people, and that's good.
Chris, I'm very curious because of your background, because of, as I've already rehearsed, the military career, being a really respected author and a politician, congressman, everything else. What's on the docket for you and for your family?
Yeah, if you have any clues, please tell me, because I'm kind of wondering myself. Again, Doug, we didn't expect to be in this position, and we made the decision and then acted on it very quickly in order to give the time for the state to, run their elections and replace me. So we didn't, kind of keep it our intentions, but not tell anyone. It was like as soon as we decided, we told people. So because of that, I really don't know what I'm going to do next. I would like to do some writing. I think I've got some stories still to tell, and I love to write, but I don't think that's the only thing I'll do. I will say this very quickly, if I could, Doug. One of the things I really struggled with, and I really had to kind of have a conversation with God about this, and that is, I have learned so much. I mean, I've been an opportunity to sit in a situation in the room at the White House and to listen to people and then have them listen to me. And I thought, how do I walk away from that? Isn't there anything good that I can do that would still, take advantage of the experience and the things I've learned? I don't know what that would be. I hope I find something. But once again, we're just kind of moving forward in faith, and we think things will work out, and life will surprise us, we hope.
Yeah. Just a quick final question, and I'm leaving you, unfortunately, very little time to respond to this. But as you just quickly look back on your time in the United States Congress, what would the highlight be? And what maybe was
I've been asked that question, so I'll answer very quickly. I've thought about it. I mean, the work I've done on intelligence and national security, I'm very, very proud of. The work I've done with mental health, suicide prevention for youth and for our soldiers particularly is what drove that. I didn't think I'd get involved with that, but the 988 number, for example, I'm very proud of that. I think the thing I'm most proud of, though, is I can say we worked our heart out for the people in the 2nd Congressional District, and we did everything that they asked us to do. And I think that's the measure of a good congressman. Are you working and trying to help the people in your district? I really believe we tried to do that, and I'm so grateful that I can say when I left, we really tried to help people back home.
We've talked about having lunch now for a long time. We need to make that come about in the next little while. Chris, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your service to our country and the military as an author, and then also as a congressman, and you're a dear friend, and I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much. And I feel the same way for your service, Doug. Congratulations on your impending retirement.
We are going to be right back for the official handoff of Sunday Edition to our new host, Boyd Matheson. Thanks for staying with us today on Sunday Edition, and as many of you know, this will be my last episode of the program, but our new host is here with me, and that's Boyd Matheson. And Boyd, on this program today, I feel like I've talked with a lot of great friends, and you're one of them. I think of your time when you have been and still are immersed in politics, but just in a little different way. And I think of your time back in Washington, working with various campaigns and even being the chief of staff of a United States senator, your time leading the Sutherland Institute, and now with your regular radio program each and every day called Inside Sources. I think that's an apropos thing. This is Sunday Edition, but you've got inside sources that I'm sure you're going to be bringing to this television program.
We're looking forward to a lot of those conversations and extending a lot of the conversations you've had over many years, Doug, to get people beyond just the politics of it all and actually get down to what's the principle, what's the policy, what's the result that we're actually going for. So really trying to maintain that higher level, kind of separate the rage from the reason and get down to the real conversation.
That's what I appreciated when you were immersed in the politics and kind of the inner workings of the machine, as it were. There was a whole different deal when I deal with you versus others that were in comparable positions. let's put it that way. But the trend, and you and I have talked about this over and over, where it seems like so many radio and television shows is just designed to rile folks up. Yeah. And sometimes, unfortunately, in our business, consultants will tell you, go for the low-hanging fruit. Yeah. Don't make people look up. Just keep it at eye level, and boy, the more you can rile them up, the better your ratings are going to be. But what does that do to our society? What does it do to our American soul?
Yeah, I think the soul is what I worry most about in terms of the nation, because we've been conditioned to respond inappropriately to those negative base emotions, anger, fear, frustration. They know how to do it. The politicians in the consulting class know how to rile us up. They'll let us rinse that off with a nice $25 contribution or a nice, clickbait onto their website, and then they repeat it. And so we've actually been conditioned to respond inappropriately to those kinds of things, and that cankers the soul, and it actually puts us in a position where it breeds contempt, and that's the real cancer, where it's not just that the other side is wrong, they're wrong and evil, and that's not what the country was founded on. You've been a great proponent of the integrity of compromise, and sadly that's become a dirty word in a lot of places and spaces in our country, and we have to get back to that kind kind of conversation, that elevated conversation, that we can disagree on all kinds of things, and we can still move the conversation forward.
You and I have had some real interesting opportunities over the years when it comes to, for example, hosting and moderating debates.
Yeah.
And you and I have even done a gubernatorial debate together.
Tag team that,
Yeah, and which I've thoroughly enjoyed. But it always kills me when I walk off the set or out of the auditorium or whatever it might be, and someone will come, well, that was boring. And you go, why? Because people weren't picking up chairs and whacking each other over the head. It wasn't the World Wrestling Federation. And I said, did you listen to it?
Yeah.
Did you listen to some of the ideas that came out of that?
Yeah.
And some of the exchanges? But I think the reality show factor now, that is, unfortunately, we all take a responsibility in this, that we expect, and if we don't see it, if we don't get it, then we feel like, well, it was boring.
Yeah, the performative politics has really created so much of that angst and anger, but that kind of performative stuff actually keeps us a very safe distance from actually solving the problems.
Exactly.
And so the real issue to me, whether it's in Washington or whether it's here in the state of Utah, it's can we get past the performative politics and actually have the conversation that will lead to the results, not to solve the politicians' problems, but to solve the American people's problems.
You know, when I found out that you were going to be taking this seat on Sunday Edition, you know, it's always hard, even though I've told many people this is the time, this is the place, this is the right decision for me, for my family, and I've had a wonderful career that I have just loved. But I'll tell you, the icing on this is knowing that you're going to take over the program. And I'm looking forward now to becoming I've always been a regular viewer of Sunday Edition, but I'm going to love watching you host this program.
Well, we're going to try to keep it up to your standard of excellence, Doug.
Oh, no, you need to go much higher than that.
You've been a vital voice in this community for a long time, and that voice will echo for decades to come. And we're hopeful that you and Dee will get some chances to exhale just a little bit, have some time with the grandkids that are amazing. And such a real gift, but your voice has been vital to this state and this region of the country in really having that reasonable conversation, to looking at principle over politics, and so that's a legacy worth having, and it's one we hope to extend.
Thank you, Boyd, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
We'll be here next Sunday.
On Sunday Edition. I need to see the new
stuff. It's coming.
Are they having you sign your name too?
I don't get an autograph.
Thanks, Boyd, and thank you. Thank you so much over the last 5 years for joining me for Sunday Edition, and we hope you'll be back next week with Boyd. And music and the spoken word, that's coming up next.